Either be late or dead.
Woo! Let's go, fellas!
Hold on. Just came out of the dry cleaners.
Frank, once a highly trained special operations soldier, had left the military behind and reinvented himself as a mercenary for hire, known in underground circles by the codename The Transporter. On the day of his latest assignment, he was in the middle of meticulously preparing his equipment when a group of young gang members barged in and disrupted him. Not wanting to be late for his rendezvous point, Frank quickly and efficiently beat them down, forcing them to retreat without delay. This new job appeared, at first, to be a simple escort mission: pick up a boy named Jack from school and ensure he got home safely. Jack was the son of Jefferson, a senior government official whose marriage to his wife, Audrey, had been crumbling under the strain of Jefferson's work obligations. Feeling neglected and emotionally distant from her husband, Audrey found herself drawn toward Frank. One evening, after drinking more than she should have, Audrey attempted to seduce him. Frank, however, politely rejected her advances, guiding her home with care and respect. This only deepened her admiration for him, as she realized he was a man of discipline, integrity, and professionalism. Some days later, during one of these routine escorts, Frank accompanied Jack to a hospital for a medical checkup. Jack was visibly uneasy, and the bond the two had formed allowed Frank to reassure and calm him. While there, Frank received a call from his friend, French detective Tarconi, who had decided to spend his vacation in Florida and was looking forward to seeing him. But mid-conversation, Frank's instincts told him something was wrong. He noticed that several hospital staff members didn't look or behave like regular employees. His suspicions proved correct: they were imposters who had already murdered the real doctors and nurses and taken their places. Peering into one of the rooms, Frank spotted an imposter preparing to inject Jack with an unknown substance. He burst in immediately, and a fight erupted. Frank's combat skills quickly overwhelmed his opponents. However, outside in the reception area, the imposter nurse opened fire on him with a gun. Thinking fast, Frank grabbed an oxygen tank, placed it on a wheeled cart, rolled it toward the shooter, then smashed a light fixture with a fire extinguisher. The sparks ignited the oxygen, causing a massive explosion. Seizing the opportunity, Frank grabbed Jack and escaped down an elevator shaft. Unbeknownst to him, a bomb had been planted underneath his car. He drove off toward Jefferson's home, but before he could reach it, his phone rang. A cold voice warned him that a sniper had him in their sights and that Jack's life would be taken if Frank didn't follow instructions exactly. The orders were simple: pick up the imposter nurse, Lola, and drive her away from the scene. As they sped off, police units began pursuing them in force. Under Lola's threat-filled directions, Frank eventually arrived at the estate of Johnny Cellini, a powerful crime boss. There, Jack was handed over. Johnny wasted no time calling Jefferson with a ransom demand: $5 million within 2 hours. To Frank's surprise, Johnny then let him go. As he was leaving, Frank noticed the bomb still attached under his vehicle. Without hesitation, he sped away from populated areas to dispose of it safely. Meanwhile, Tarconi, who had been enjoying his Florida vacation at Frank's house, was unexpectedly arrested by American police for questioning related to the incident. Determined to track down Jack, Frank returned to the hospital and reviewed security camera footage, identifying one of the imposters as a man named Dimitri. He phoned Tarconi for assistance. At the police station, Tarconi, ever the charmer, was cooking French dishes for the officers. While doing so, he covertly accessed their computer system, located Dimitri's address, and passed it to Frank. Frank confronted Dimitri, but the man panicked and ran, triggering a high-speed chase that ended with Frank pursuing him via jet ski. Cornered, Dimitri confessed bits of the plan, but Frank upped the pressure by injecting him with an unknown liquid, making him panic further. Dimitri's flight led them to a secret laboratory. There, Dmitri pleaded with a pharmacist for an antidote, but Frank caught up, defeated him, and demanded answers. The pharmacist revealed the grim truth: the yellow liquid was a lethal virus designed to kill within 24 hours of injection, highly contagious and spreadable through the victim's breath. Jack, it turned out, had already been injected. His kidnapping was just a cover to mask the real objective. Johnny's plan targeted Jefferson directly, using him as a carrier to spread the virus during the upcoming National Drug Control Conference. The pharmacist also explained that a purple liquid was the only cure. The pharmacist, however, tossed the last vial of antidote out the window in an attempt to destroy it. Frank dived after it, narrowly saving it even as it nearly cost him his hand under the wheel of a passing vehicle. He is able to save only one vial, while the second one shatters. The transporter changes out of his torn clothing into a new suit. The Billings family, after paying the ransom, get their son back, but it turns out he was locked in a flower van. However, no one knows that Jack is infected with a deadly virus that kills anyone who comes in contact with him within 24 hours. Soon, it becomes clear that Jack has been infected with the virus, and his parents are beginning to show symptoms as well. Despite this, Jack's father goes to meet with the head of the organization combating illegal substances. Frank secretly enters the Billings home, finds Jack's mother, and gives her the medicine meant for the boy. However, both parents are also infected, and now Frank himself has become a carrier of the virus. When the police arrive to arrest him, he manages to escape. Later, Jack's mother collapses, and his father's condition worsens, forcing him to be rushed to the hospital. Meanwhile, during a press conference, Gianni and the blonde woman celebrate the fortune they expect to earn the next day from selling illegal substances. Frank takes a taxi to Gianni's residence and stealthily slips into the garage. There, he fights his way through the criminals, first in the garage, then up the stairs, easily defeating them as he pushes toward Gianni. When he finally reaches him, Gianni injects himself with all the remaining antidote and flees, leaving Frank to face his ruthless blonde partner. A brutal fight follows, but she is ultimately killed. Frank then takes Gianni's Lamborghini to the airport and manages to leap onto the villain's plane as it takes off. After subduing one pilot, he resumes fighting Gianni. In his rage, Gianni accidentally shoots the second pilot, causing the plane to plummet into the ocean. The two continue their battle during the descent, but Frank eventually knocks Gianni out and brings him to the surface, where police are waiting. Later, at the hospital, Frank visits Jack's family. Doctors have managed to reproduce the antidote using Gianni's blood, and everyone has recovered.
We're playing a much larger game.
You, of course.
Keep at it.
Frank Martin, better known by his call sign The Transporter, has returned to France, settling into a quiet retirement. These days, he spends his time enjoying peaceful fishing trips with his longtime friend, Inspector Tarconi. Meanwhile, far away in Eastern Europe, Leonid Tomalenko, the Minister of the Environmental Agency, has been making a name for himself by pushing strong environmental protection policies. One day, he receives an unusual phone call from a stranger claiming to have been hired to negotiate certain trade permissions. Tomalenko, suspicious of the motive, refuses outright. He makes it clear that he will not allow the release of chemical pollutants into the environment, no matter how profitable it might be. The caller's tone changes. And he told Tomalenko he kidnapped his daughter. He then demands that Tomalenko reconsider and sign the contract within 24 hours, or face the consequences. Back in France, Frank is at home having a quiet evening, lazily watching random TV programs. His peace is violently interrupted when a car crashes straight into his house. The impact jolts him into action, and he goes outside to investigate. Inside the vehicle, he finds the driver severely injured. Checking the man's license, Frank realizes the driver is also a transporter. This instantly reminds Frank of an encounter he had just a few days earlier, when several shady individuals approached him to take on a job. Frank had turned them down, politely at first, before forced them to leave by physically overpowering them. Now, seeing the wounded driver, he suspects this is the very job he refused. Before the paramedics arrive, the dying driver begs Frank not to take him out of the car. But despite this, emergency responders load him into an ambulance. While inspecting the vehicle, Frank discovers a young woman inside. She tells him something shocking: both she and the driver were wearing explosive bracelets, designed to detonate if they stray too far from the car. Alarmed, Frank rushes to intercept the ambulance, but before he can reach it, it explodes in a massive fireball. Just as he turns to question the girl further, he is struck from behind and loses consciousness. When he wakes, Frank finds himself wearing the same deadly bracelet he saw on the others. He dresses himself, and soon after, a man named Jonas Johnson appears. Johnson explains the terms. Frank is to transport certain parcels for him, and if he disobeys, the bracelet will kill him. To make his control complete, Johnson returns Frank's car, but it's now fitted with GPS tracking and a detonation system. One wrong move, and Frank's vehicle will become his coffin. Johnson's orders are simple but sinister: keep the minister's daughter, Valentina, constantly moving until Tomalenko signs the contract. There's no specific destination, just perpetual travel. As they drive, Frank and Valentina talk briefly, revealing that she too was kidnapped against her will. Determined not to be a pawn, Frank deviates from the planned route and heads to a trusted mechanic friend for help. Johnson quickly notices the change in course and dispatches his men. As the mechanic investigates the bracelet, Johnson's thugs arrive, leading to a fight in which Frank effortlessly defeats them. Valentina, impressed by his skill and composure, begins to show interest in him. While Frank changes clothes, she playfully fixes his tie. The mechanic eventually discovers the truth: the bracelet cannot be removed, nor can its signal transmitter be disabled. If Frank wants to survive, he must follow Johnson's schedule. Angered by Frank's defiance, Johnson arranges for another driver to replace him. Frank is lured to a public phone, where the switch is set to happen. But Frank pursues on a motorcycle, engaging in a daring chase and ultimately ejecting the replacement driver from his own car. Meanwhile, Minister Tomalenko refuses to remain idle while his daughter is in danger. He mobilizes agents to locate her and delays signing the contract. The agents trace the GPS from the earlier transporter's car, gradually closing in on Frank. Tarconi, sensing something unusual about the case, also becomes involved. Frank calls him, sharing information while simultaneously calling Johnson to make it seem like he's compliant. Tarconi tries to use the call to track Johnson's location, but the conversation ends before they can pinpoint it. Frank is forced to continue driving to a new location. While stopping for fuel, he notices the minister's agents approaching. He quickly collects the drunken Valentina and speeds off. During the escape, he accuses Johnson of sending the pursuers after him. Johnson denies it, promising to find out who they are. In the chase that follows, Frank maneuvers between two blocking trucks, then deliberately slows to let an agent's car pass, only to ram it off a cliff moments later. This leads Frank to suspect the real cargo isn't in the trunk. Opening it, he finds nothing but books. The realization hits him: Valentina herself is the package. After surviving multiple close calls, Frank and Valentina grow closer, eventually becoming intimate. She explains that the previous driver had broken Johnson's rules to let her contact her father. Before she could speak to him, Johnson's men attacked, fatally wounding the driver, forcing him to seek Frank's help. Johnson contacts the minister, threatening him again, but Tomalenko insists on speaking directly to his daughter before signing anything. Johnson then sends Frank the coordinates for the next pickup. The next day, Tarconi meets with the minister and uses recorded calls with Johnson to narrow down his location. Meanwhile, Frank arrives at the designated bridge, where Johnson unlocks Valentina's bracelet but orders his men to kill Frank. Frank drives off the bridge into the river below. Johnson assumes he is doomed, either he will drown in the submerged car or detonate the bracelet if he tries to swim up. But Frank uses a buoyancy device from his trunk, inflates it with the tires, and floats the car to the surface. By the time Tarconi and the police arrive, Frank has already been pulled ashore. Johnson, now on the move again, takes Valentina onto a train to avoid police detection. He puts her on the phone with her father, giving Tomalenko 15 minutes to sign the contract. Tarconi passes the train's location to Frank, who speeds toward it. In a daring stunt, Frank launches his car from a bridge onto the top of the moving train. Fighting his way through the train cars, he nearly reaches Johnson but is stopped by the bracelet's detonation limit. Johnson exploits this by separating the train cars, forcing Frank to return to his car. Thinking fast, Frank rams the car back into Johnson's section, subdues him, and locks the bracelet onto Johnson's wrist. He then reverses the car away. Johnson frees himself, but before he can escape the blast radius, the bracelet detonates, killing him instantly. At 9 o'clock, with no police confirmation that Valentina is safe, the minister reluctantly begins to sign the contract, only to be interrupted by a call from Tarconi confirming her rescue. Tomalenko tears the EcoCorp contract to pieces. The illegal cargo ship tied to the deal is intercepted by the authorities and sent away from Ukrainian waters. Later, Frank returns to his peaceful fishing trips with Tarconi, though now Valentina joins them, teasing that they should eat at a restaurant instead.